Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you. My name is Pratik and I'll be taking up the News Today discussion for 8th January 2026. So here are the headlines. First, Draft Pesticide Management Bill 2025. In this particular news, we'll discuss the reasons why this bill has come into existence and what exactly are the salient features of this particular draft bill. Second news, India assumes BRICS chairmanship and India is going to India is going to be hosting the next BRICS summit as well in 2026. So in this context, we will understand the reasons why India will take the things that India will be doing under its chairmanship and what exactly are the important aspects of BRICS. Then in the third news, government eases rules for private afforestation work on leased forest land. In this particular news, we will discuss the context and the reasons for the particular news and what could be the implication of this on the forest rights of people. And in the fourth news, we have center issues notification for first phase of Census 2027. Here we will discuss what exactly are the important aspects of this year's particular census, and the last news is US to withdraw from 66 international organizations. So here we'll discuss the reasons why US is taking this particular decision and what could be the potential implication of this move on international relations. Then in the places in news, we will be discussing Liechtenstein as India is going to expedite its FTA with this particular country, and then we also have quick updates. So in the first news, we have Draft Pesticides Management Bill 2025. So recently, the Union government has released this particular bill for consultation with the public so that they can provide certain inputs on this particular bill. Now the context here is very important, that the bill particularly, that the draft bill essentially is going to revise the bill that act that came in 1968. So the previous act, 1968 Insecticides Act, and its subsequent rule was created in an era that was primarily for the Green Revolution, okay? So if you look at the larger reason why this particular draft rule or act of public bill has been acted is because the earlier act that was enacted no longer serves the purpose. Why? Because it was enacted in the era of Green Revolution and it was largely restricting or was targeting the chemical insecticides, right? Now, but as we know that now the whole era or the whole scope of agriculture has increased. Now, so this particular bill is trying to increase the scope of the pesticide, right? So first thing, the reason why this bill has come into existence is to increase the mandate of the erstwhile bill. The second important reason why this bill has come into existence is because of the rising health and environmental risk. And the reason for this is because of the fact that because of the inconspicuous consumption of pesticides, especially by the farmers, there have been several reported cases of suicides. So there is there's a need to ensure that the pesticides are supplied in a controlled and a regulated manner, and also to check its misuse because it also creates several environmental hazards as well. Third important objective of this particular bill is to ensure that the regulation and enforcement gaps are also aligned with the global best practices as has been described by WHO and FAO. So these are the key objectives behind this particular draft bill. Now let us take a look into what have been done to address, or what are the key features of this particular bill. So again, to understand this, it is essential that we look at it from the perspective in a very logical way, in a very sequential order, right? So first thing is, we need to understand what is happening here. So who is making the rules? What are the bodies that are created for advice, right? Who? So basically we'll talk about the governance structure. Then we'll talk about the what part, what exactly are going to be the important steps, and how these mechanisms will be driven. Okay, so first three important features essentially talks about the the who part of this particular bill, in terms of who is deciding or who is making recommendation for policies related to pesticides management. And for this, we have a multi-sectoral body called as Central Pesticide Board. So this is a multi-sectoral advisory body, and it is going to provide advice on a host of issues, including safety standards, disposal of the pesticides so that it is done in an environmentally sustainable manner, and inclusion of new pesticide molecules. So essentially this is about the advisory body. The second important body is registration committee, and it is going to be a technical body to examine the applications for pesticide development, or essentially for manufacturing, and this is to be done in a digital manner. Okay, so we have two important bodies for policy advice, one, and the second one is a technical body, that is registration committee. And third important is, you have a digital transparency done through National Register of Pesticides. Now all the applications that is to be done for the manufacture, sale, consumption of pesticide is now to be done in a digital manner to ensure that there is transparency. And it is going to track the manufacture, stock, and sales. And the purpose here is to curb the spurious products. So these three measures are essentially in line of the governance mechanism. Then the next mechanism here is to ensure that the governance or administration is also done in a very effective manner, so that there is ease of doing business, and to ensure that there is a very important decision done, that is within 18 months, the registration body has to provide to approve that registration. If it is not done within 18 months, it is deemed to be approved if the pesticide in question is a generic one, which means that for normal pesticides, which doesn't require too much changes, or which is not a novel pesticide, if application is being sent and it is more than 18 months from the time of the submission of the application, it will be deemed to be accepted. So this is a very important development here. Then there is a surveillance mechanism. Now you have created an infrastructure, you have also provided for ease of doing business, but at the same time there is a requirement of ensuring that there is a proper surveillance as well for reporting, analyzing all the poisoning cases or defects. Designated medical preparedness is to be done, and for that there is a surveillance mechanism. And for this will also facilitate in the quality control. And for this, there is mandatory accreditation of pesticide testing laboratories to ensure product quality. And apart from that, there is also emphasis on worker safety as well. And this bills prescribe training and safety standards for pesticide handlers to address occupational health risk. So these are the major features. All of these features are very progressive in nature, and they're going to have a very positive impact on the agriculture sector. They will also help in reducing the import of the pesticides that India does from external world, and also it will help in India's effectiveness in improving agricultural productivity. and enhancing the income of farmer. Along with that, it will also have a positive impact on environment as well. So this bill has multiple benefits. If you look at the pesticide usage in India, so the purpose here, pest basically means those animals or pests which are the uh, creatures that are very harmful to the agriculture. And pesticides are used to kill, prevent, reduce, destroy, or repel a pest. And it broadly constitutes insecticides and fungicides, herbicides, biopesticides, etc. And the herbicides control the growth of weeds, have the largest market share at 44%. So if a question comes in prelims that among the pesticide, which one has the highest component, then your answer will be herbicide. And India's pesticide consumption is quite less, 0.5 kg per hectare, compared to the world average, which is 17 kg per hectare, right? And the states with the highest consumption, first is Maharashtra, then UP, Punjab, and lastly, and at the fourth level position is Telangana, right? So this is about the first news. Let's move to the second important news of the day, that is India assumes BRICS chairmanship and will host the 18th BRICS summit in 2026. Now this, of course, is from GS Paper 2, International Relations. And whenever we are studying about any international any international organization, it becomes important both from the prelim side and from the main side. From the prelim side, it is important to understand the structure, which means which countries are part of this particular group, and the mandate, what exactly is the key objective of this particular grouping. Apart from that, from the mains perspective, we should also understand how a particular group will help India realize its foreign policy objectives. And then we should also have certain factual information about the origin of a particular group and some key ideas about the recent summits, right? For example, this year itself, there was a question on the summit where it was held and the themes of this particular year's theme, or this year's summit. So India's chairmanship is structured around 4 pillars, and these pillars are resilience, innovation, cooperation, and environmental stability. Now this can be understood through an acronym which was given by our Prime Minister Modi. So this is building resilience, innovation, cooperation, and sustainability. Okay, so this is going to be the larger theme or the pillars. These 4 pillars, resilience, innovation, cooperation, and sustainability or stability, is going to be the 4 key pillars that India will be looking into as it becomes or assumes the chairmanship of BRICS, okay? So let's take a look at one of the tweets of our Prime Minister, who has highlighted what exactly is going to be the priority of India as it assumes the chairpersonship of BRICS. So what PM Modi says is that under India's BRICS chairmanship next year, we will continue to work closely on all key issues. Our goal will be to redefine BRICS as building resilience and innovation for cooperation and sustainability, just as we brought inclusivity to our G20. How did we bring inclusivity? By incorporating African Union in G20, right? And place the concerns of Global South at the forefront of the agenda. Similarly, during our presidency of BRICS, we will advance this forum with a people-centric approach. Again, this word is very important, that we are going to take a people-centric approach and the spirit of humanity first. So here, see, understand that during SCO summit also last year in China, Tianjin, China, PM Modi also came up with another called acronym as well, and that was security, connectivity, and organizational or operations, right? And so these are the things that government keeps on coming up with when it comes to any international organization. So the key idea is that we should understand the focus that government has, right? Now, what is the significance of India's BRICS presidency? So this is going to be the 18th presidency. Before, in the 17th, it was Brazil, and 16th one was done by, or it was by Russia, right? So what exactly are the priorities? So number one priority of government would be to reform the global governance, and this is essentially is to call reform and not to replace the international institutions, and the purpose is to avoid Western dominance, right? So first is definitely to reform the multilateral global governance institutions. Secondly, to provide global South leadership and support for multipolar world order. So what exactly it means is that India wants to be a bridge between the global South and West. Why? Because India has the characteristics of both a developing countries and sort of a developed country as well, right? And to represent the concerns of the global South, which includes poverty, inequality, environmental degradation, etc. Then promotion of digital public infrastructure. India has done incredibly well when it comes to digital inclusiveness and providing for digital public infrastructure in the form of UPI, etc. So India has potential to provide scalable developmental model for the global South using the presidency of BRICS. Then it will also enhance India's strategic autonomy and multi-alignment. India can balance engagement with the Western-led groupings like Quad, right? And China, like through China, it has its alliance or partnership in not just BRICS, but also through SCO. And this is going to preserve India's strategic autonomy. If you look at some of the key information about BRICS, we know that its genesis was because of a very important paper presented by economist of Goldman Sachs. His name was Jim O'Neill. So Jim O'Neill in 2001 published a paper which called about 4 economies. And these economies was Brazil, Russia, India, and China. And he said that these are going to be the new emerging economies outside the G8 system, right? Or G7 countries. And in 2006, on the sidelines of G8 or G20 meeting, these countries met and they decided to form a kind of an alliance or kind of a grouping, and this materialized in 2009 when the first summit was held in Russia, right? And this was again BRIC, and in 2010, South Africa joined, so it became BRICS. So this is the genesis of the group, okay? And the aim here essentially is to reform the multilateral or to reform the multilateral institution. Also to highlight the concerns of the global South. Then chairmanship here is not fixed, it is on rotational basis. So earlier it was done through this. So for example, if Brazil was a chairperson for 1 year, then it would pass to Russia, then it would pass to India, then to China, then to this. So again, this was the way through which the chairmanship would pass in the earlier system, but recently there has been an extension or expansion in the grouping. So as of now, this is not clear how the chairmanship would be decided, right? So the three pillars of cooperation of BRICS essentially are the three important areas of IR. So first, cooperation is your political cooperation, political plus security cooperation. Then you have economic and financial cooperation. And then you have the third, that is cultural and people-to-people ties. So political and security is done at the highest level, heads of state meeting, and it is the basically track one diplomacy, right? Then you have economic plus financial. It is where government along with the private sector also take part, and it is also essential because of this effort, there is New Development Bank and CRA, Contingency Reserve Agreement, has been established because of these efforts. And then you have cultural and people-to-people ties in a way to also take people along, right? So these are the three major pillars of cooperation of BRICS. And if you look at the whole, what kind of representation it has, so it represents almost 50% of the world population, around 40% of the global GDP, and around 26% of global trade. Now, this is the position occupied by the previous BRICS prior to the extension or expansion. So, BRICS we have already discussed. These were the 5 initial members, where South Africa joined in 2010. And this is the new members. So 5 new members have recently joined, which includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Okay, so these are the 5 members. So remember it from in this perspective that Saudi Arabia and UAE are the 2 Arab members, and not just Saudi Arabia, its erstwhile rival also is there, that is Iran. So earlier this was unthinkable that Iran and Saudi Arabia will be sharing a platform, but because of the diplomacy of countries like India, Russia, and China particularly, Iran and Saudi Arabia have come on the same platform, which is a remarkable achievement. Then you have countries like Egypt. So Egypt has also recognized Israel in 1978 after the Camp David Accord. And then you have Ethiopia, a very important African country, and Indonesia, a very significant Southeast Asian country. So these are the 5 members who are now part of expanded BRICS. If you look at the question that came in this year itself, 2025 prelims, they had a question which had 3 statements. The first statement read as follows: the 16th BRICS summit was held under the chairship of Russia in Kazan. So see, the key takeaway here is this, that you need to know where the chairmanship is being held, or where the meeting is being held, and who is the chair, right? So this part is important, and this is correct. We already discussed that. 16th was in Russia, 17th Brazil, and 18th, that is to be done in 2026, that is India. So this you should know. Then secondly, you should also know that which countries are a part of this grouping. So here we can easily say that this statement is correct because Indonesia is the member or full member of BRICS, right? Along with other countries like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and UAE, right? Then this theme of 16th BRICS summit was strengthening multiculturalism for just global development and security. Now pause for a minute, read it very carefully, because this statement is not correct. Why? Because the theme was not multiculturalism, but multilateralism. So we have already discussed that one of the key objectives of BRICS is to reform the multilateral institutions, okay? And that is the key, and along with that, to also push forward the agenda of Global South. So this initiative strengthening multilateralism for just global development and security, right? So that was the theme. So therefore, 1 and 2 are correct. So the right answer is A. Next topic, again a very important development. Union government eased rules for private afforestation work on leased forest land. So this is slightly complex topic, I would say, because as such it doesn't make any like you wouldn't understand what exactly is the problem if government is doing this. So let's take a look at what exactly is the matter at hand and what exactly is the concern that is arising from it. So first of all, understand that there was a change that was done recently in the वन संरक्षण एवं संवर्धन अधिनियम 1980, that was the erstwhile Forest Conservation Act of 1980. So in that particular act, what was done was, in certain areas, for certain purposes, when the forest land is used, or if forest land is used for, say, two purposes, for forestry purposes and for diversion of forest resources, diversion, right? So this is called as forestry activities, and these are diversions or other activities. Okay, so in India, as per the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 and the recent amendment done, there are two categories of work that can be done under the forest land. These are categorized under forest activities and, say, diversion activities or non-forest activities. So if there is any work that is done for diversion of forest land, in that case, there are two things that has to be ensured. One is that there is an NPV that has to be provided, that is the net present value of the forest land. What is net present value? A forest land performs a lot of ecosystem services. What ecosystem services? Like carbon sequestration. It absorbs a lot of carbon. It releases a lot of oxygen. It ensures that it provides for biodiversity. It curbs soil erosion and a lot of other activities. So there is even though they cannot be quantified, still there is an attempt made to quantify or monetize the kind of ecosystem services that the present forest land is providing. And a number is given to that service, and that number or monetary sum is called as NPV. Then the second one is called CAMPA or CA. Let's call CA, that is compensatory of afforestation. So if a forest land is used for non-forest purpose, for diversion purpose, for commercial purpose, for any other purpose other than forestry activities, you have to pay for NPV, and then there is compensatory afforestation, which means that the person who is indulged in using that forest land has to provide for all the kind of forest activities in a separate patch of land, right? And that should be a non-forest land. And this should include raising of the similar kind of trees and try to have some sort of the biosystem or biodiversity that the existing patch of land would be having, right? So these are the two things that was there. But what the government recently has done is that for certain kind of activities, that is assisted natural regeneration, earlier it was part of this diversion activity. Now it has been given under forestry activity. So now what happens is, this could be done either by the government or by non-government entities, that is private entities, right? Now these activities, the assisted natural regeneration, basically forest can be generated by either natural regeneration or assisted natural regeneration. Natural regeneration means that the forest gets regenerated on its own without any external help. Assisted natural regeneration means that the government or the private sector is providing some sort of help, like clearing the forest, providing for certain insecticides or burning, etc., so that nature itself takes cue, and it also helps in afforestation on its own, right? So here what is there is that this part, assisted natural regeneration part, is to be now considered as forestry activities, right? And this essentially means that the requirement for NPV and compensatory afforestation is no longer applicable, right? So this is the major difference. So on such activities which may include afforestation, plantation, etc., these limitations will not be there, right? And apart from that, state government can devise a framework for how you can utilize such plantation and for revenue sharing. So essentially, the union government has empowered the state government and the private entities to provide for such kind of work and to devise a plan whereby the state government can decide what kind of plantations can be done, what should be the revenue model, what should be the sharing of all these things, right? So these are aspects which you need to understand. Now, what is the concerns which have been raised because of this? The concerns which have been raised essentially is that it is possible that the DPRs, the detailed project requirements which are to be done before submitting the project report or before providing for such activities, may not be done in a very convincing or in a comprehensive manner, as a result of which this activity could lead to commercial usage of forest land, and in a way that could lead to erosion of, or it could lead to destruction of the forest land. That is the major concern that the activists have flagged. Also, as per the government, there is a huge requirement of paper products, fiber products, which can be met through usage of this amendment. In fact, because of this increase in the usage consumption, the import burden of government has also substantially increased. But a lot of activists have criticized this move, saying that perhaps this could have been done through other means and not by diluting this particular law that has been doing well in the previous times, right? So this is the major change which has been criticized by the activists, yet the government also has some important consideration behind its move. Now, when it comes to the changes which happened in the Forest Conservation Act, that is Forest Sanrakshan Evam Sanvardhan Adhiniyam 1980, which essentially talk about three things. First, applicability. So now the applicability of the Forest Conservation Act will only be applicable as decided by the definition of forest provided in Indian Forest Act 1927, right? So this means that the protection that any forest land gets through this particular law does not automatically extend to every forest, but only to those forests which meet the criteria of forest that is classified or declared in accordance with the provisions of this Indian Forest Act of 1927. At the same time, there have been certain exemptions which is provided, which is restrictions on the forest land within 100 kilometers of international borders for national security projects. So this is the exemption. Third, it permits activity, it reclassifies ecotourism, zoos, silvicultural activities as forestry activities. So what exactly are the benefits of classifying something within forestry activities? Again, as we discussed, it would exempt the payment of NPV and CA, okay, and exempting them from certain non-forest use restrictions. So these again were some of the moves that were criticized by the activist. Next news, center issues notification for the first phase of Census 2027. Now this topic is essential not only from the perspective of your general studies paper 2 social issues, because in the census you get a lot of data with respect to demography, sex ratio, and other important developments like all birth rate, death rate, etc. But you also understand the pattern in which the demography of the country is witnessing, right? So, and apart from that, this also helps us in evidence-based policy making. So this can also be part of general studies paper 2 polity. So what has been done with respect to the particular news is that the census will be undertaken under 2 phases. The first phase will be where the house listing operations will be done, and this will be done between April and September across all the states and UTs. That is the first phase. The second phase is where your individual population will be enumerated. Population enumeration, that is the second phase, and that will be conducted next year from February 2027. But it is not uniform here. For the UT of Ladakh and the snow-bound areas of Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, the population enumeration will be conducted in September 2026, right after the house listing operations are done. Okay, so this is the whole chronology of how the phases of census will be undertaken. Now, what makes this census different or unique in aspects is essentially what is going to be the next area of discussion. So what are the key features? So this is significant in the fact that it is India's first digital census. So earlier, the enumerators, in fact, there have been 35 to 40 lakh enumerators who are going to take part in the census operation. And earlier they used to have registers to mark all the details. But now this will be replaced by mobile apps, tabs, etc. for data collection. So it's a significant development. Second, it provides for caste enumeration as well. So in the previous census, even though there was provision for counting the population of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, it didn't have the provision for enumerating all the caste, right? Like the unreserved caste or say other backward class caste, etc. So this is going to be the first nationwide caste enumeration in the independent India, the last one that was done in 1931. And there have been several political debate whether a caste census should be conducted or not. So finally this was settled that yes, we need to have certain caste in the census as well. That will help us make more inclusive and targeted policies. Then with respect to the digital features, there are a couple of things that you should be aware of. First is that there is a provision for self-enumeration portal. So this will provide for the citizens to independently complete the questionnaire. So as part of census, there are several questionnaires that are provided to you. So if you do this on your own, then it definitely reduces the work of the enumerators. Then second is there is a monitoring system as well. So you have a census management and monitoring system, CMMS, which allows the supervisors and district officers to track the progress of the enumeration. And third, you have house listing block HLB creator, which is essentially a satellite-based web mapping application that enables the officers to create precise digital enumeration blocks. And lastly, there is census as a service. So we have heard about software as a service, but here we are providing census as a service. So and to whom it is to be provided as a service to the ministers. And what they will do with the service, they will provide a clean, machine readable and queryable database to facilitate evidence-based policy making. So they can understand, okay, in which area the education level is low, or in which area health requirements or health interventions are needed. So this will provide for a good level of intervention and targeted policy making. With respect to the census in India, there are a couple of factual aspects that you should be aware of. So it is conducted by the Office of Registrar General and the Census Commissioner of India. And this officer, he she works within the Ministry of Home Affairs. Then it has a legal backing as well, as per the Census Act of 1948 and also conducted through census rules of 1990. Census 2027 will be the 16th census in the country and 8th after independence. The first synchronous census started in the year 1881 by W.C. Plowden, right? So last census which was conducted in India was in 2011, and it was scheduled to be conducted in 2021, but because of COVID, it could not be conducted, and that is why it is now being conducted in 2026-7, right? Next news, US to withdraw from 66 international organizations. Within this, there are certain 35 or 31 UN-based organizations, and then you have other organizations as well. So of course, this is part of international relations. In fact, a question has also come from this particular topic when in the first Trump 1.0, when US withdrew from UNESCO, then a question came that what would be its implication on the world at large. So in this particular topic, what is important is why US is withdrawing. So that is pretty clear to us because of the policy of MAGA, that is Make America Great Again, and their approach is very transactional in nature. And as and when any organization is serving US national interest, US is part of it, and if any organization is deemed to subvert US interest or is criticizing US government, then US is straight away going or opting out or withdrawing from that particular organization. So that is basically the reason why US is doing this, because of the fact that it is very transactional and it is very short-sighted in approach, and it is not thinking from a long-term perspective. But what is more important for us is what could be the potential implication of this move on the global politics at large. So let us take a look at this. But before this, the order that was signed by the President of US, it instructs the US agencies to cease participation, and not just participation but also funding for 35 non-UN organizations and 31 UN entities. As per US, these entities operate contrary to US national interest, security, economic prosperity, or sovereignty. US earlier withdrew from Paris Agreement, WHO, and UN Human Rights Council, UNHRC. Okay, so what are the important organizations from where the UN is withdrawing from? So the UN organizations are UNFCCC, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, then UNCTAD, UN Conference on Trade and Development, then you have Peace Building Commission, IPCC, UN Register of Conventional Arms, etc. And if you look at some of the important non-UN organizations, you have International Energy Forum, International Solar Alliance, IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature, etc. So these are the organizations from where US is proposed to withdraw from. Okay, again, the whole organizations list is not important, but you should know a couple of them so that you can provide them as examples in any mains answer. Now this is very important, the impact, the potential impact of US withdrawal. So what exactly will happen? So first thing is that any international organization is meant to harmonize the efforts of the countries on global challenges. So we must think that what are the global challenges that the world at large is facing. So one is definitely your climate change. And climate change doesn't happen, it doesn't respect the boundaries of one country, right? So if one country is accepting the idea of climate change and not using polluting fuels, then it's not that its impact is going to be felt only by that country, right? So it needs a harmonized set of action. It requires funding so that the poorer countries can also adopt proper green energy transition. But because of this action by Trump and because of the fund issues, then it is going to hinder the global efforts to curb the greenhouse gases, which has led to climate change and global warming, because it also gives other nations the excuse to delay their own actions and commitments. The second important impact is that it will help or it will lead to fragmentation of the multilateralism. US withdrawal will further weaken the international governance, for example, WTO, enhance power rivalries, leading to shift towards protectionism and smaller ad hoc regional blocs or minilateralism. Third, it will halt development. US traditionally has played a key role in global institutions, and funding cuts subsequent to US withdrawal will deteriorate the already diminishing international humanitarian and development aid. Then lastly, it will also impact global peace. Why? Because absence of US contribution for peace building commission. So earlier there was an idea of peacekeeping, but peacekeeping was considered to be very transactional and short-sighted approach. So there was an approach for peace building. But since US is not part of peace building commission, then it will hamper the peace effects, the peace efforts in the conflict-ridden area, especially in Africa, such as Sudan, right, or South Sudan, or Somali, etc., or in the Caribbean, right? All these areas will see a lot of challenges, right? So if you look at the previous year question that came from this particular topic was, too little cash, too much politics leaves UNESCO fighting for life. Discuss the statement in light of US's withdrawal and its accusation of the cultural body as being anti-Israel bias. Okay, so this question was a very important one, because if you look at it, it doesn't has any India element in it, right? So generally when we study international relations, we look at the bilateral relations of India with its neighbors, or we look at the relationship of India with that of the great powers, especially the P5 powers, right? And also we look at, when we look at any international organization, we look at its structure, its mandate, and how does it help in fulfilling India's international relation or India's international objectives. But this case, here India did not feature prominently, and still UPSC asked a question. So the key idea that UPSC wants to give to you is that any major development, for example, recently the US is Venezuela relations, you should have an understanding, right? Not only from the perspective of how it impacts India's interest, but also in terms of the geopolitical realignment because of that, right? So take a look at this and try to attempt this question as well. Then let's take a look at the place in news. And in the place in news, we have Liechtenstein, right? Liechtenstein, this is capital is Vaduz. So why Liechtenstein was in news? Because Union Minister of Commerce and Industry visited Liechtenstein to accelerate the implementation of an FTA, which is called as EFTA, Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, TEPA. So recently India has signed FTA with various countries, including UK, and recently with Oman and New Zealand, right? So India is on a spree to have different sort of, India wants to diversify its trade relations, particularly to hedge the economic sanctions imposed by the Trump administration, right? So again, this can be looked in that particular context. So what is this TEPA? TEPA is India's first free trade agreement with a developed region group of EFTA countries, and EFTA essentially is a group which consists of 4 countries, which is Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. All of them are highly prosperous countries. So if you look at the location of this country, Liechtenstein, it's one of the smallest countries in the world. Population is also very less, and it is the only country that is double landlocked. Landlocked countries are those countries which do not have access to ocean, and doubly landlocked countries are those countries which are sandwiched between 2 landlocked countries. So Austria and Switzerland both are landlocked countries, and Liechtenstein is essentially sandwiched between these 2 landlocked countries. Therefore, it is called as doubly landlocked country. Then, importantly, it is not a member of European Union, but it is a member of EFTA, that is European Free Trade Agreement, EFTA, right? And the bordering countries, as we have already discussed, is Austria and Switzerland. If you look at the geographical features, the mountain ranges, it has Alps as the highest point, and major rivers are Rhine and Samina. Now let's discuss the quick updates. So first one is biomaterials. Now biomaterials are gaining a lot of traction in a lot of countries because of the harmful impacts of the plastics and how the biotechnology can help in providing sustainable alternatives to traditional petroleum-based products. So let us take a look into what exactly are they. So biomaterials are the materials that are entirely or partially they are derived from biological sources or created through biological processes, right? So this is the broad definition of biomaterial. Now what are their applications? Why they are so important? Because they are used in bioengineering, biomedicine, for packaging, agriculture, healthcare, textile, etc. Now biomaterials are essentially of 3 types. You have a drop-in biomaterial, you have drop-out biomaterials, and you have novel biomaterials. So the drop-in biomaterials are chemically identical to the petroleum-based material, and which allows them to be used in existing manufacturing systems such as bio-PET, right? Then you have drop-out biomaterials, which are chemically different from the traditional material, and therefore they require some updated processing along with disposal systems. And for this, an example is polylactic acid, PLA. And then you have novel biomaterials which offer unique properties that are not found in the conventional materials, including self-healing capabilities and bioactive implants. So these are the important applications and the categories of biomaterials. Next, recently an advanced estimates of the gross domestic product of India has been released by the National Statistical Office in India. And as per the estimate, the real GDP is estimated, so it is an estimation, and the data is available only till November, that estimated to grow by 7.4% in the fiscal year 2025-2026, which is almost a 1% increase from last year, which was 6.5%. So this is the real GDP. Real GDP is the GDP that accounts for inflation. Okay, so it excludes the inflation and talks about what is the change in the total value of goods and services produced, accounting for inflation. Okay, so it reduces the impact of inflation. And if you look at the nominal GDP, so the real GDP at the constant price is estimated to attain a level of rupees 201 lakh crore in FY 25-26. And if you can see, this gap is very narrow. Estimated nominal GDP, which accounts for it adds the inflation part. Okay, it is estimated to grow at 8% in FY 25-26. So the gap is very narrow, only 0.6%. Narrow nominal GDP or GDP at current prices is estimated to attain a level of 357 lakh crores in the FY 25-26. Now, as per several estimates of the government, the real GDP was somewhat higher, which was estimated, and the nominal GDP was supposed to be around 10.1%. And why this numbers matter is because of this number is estimate or useful in calculating the fiscal deficit, in calculating debt to GDP ratio, etc. Right? So if this number is calculated correctly, then a lot of other indicators or numbers are also important. Now, as per the government reports, the GDP revision process is underway, and there's going to be some changes in the base year, and there's also going to be some changes in the data basis from where we are calculating the entire GDP. So the data counts are going to be changing or increased, and the base year is also going to change. So apart for that purpose, perhaps we'll have another set of GDP that we can look into, right? Then next is about TRAI, and it basically is a very unfortunate development as per a report that 97% of the penalties that have been imposed by TRAI, that is Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, remains unpaid. And unfortunately, or interestingly, TRAI can only impose penalties on specific violations like spam and the quality of services. And even then, we can say that only 3% penalties have been paid. And why this happens? Because the operators move to the appellate tribunal, and then the specific violations are then not considered. Right? So this basically tells either the TRAI is not working in the mandate that it was supposed to be, or there is problem in terms of its whole functioning or power. So perhaps there's a need to empower the TRAI as well, in line with the SEBI, as it is more powerful. So if you look at the genesis of TRAI, it was founded in 1997 by an act called Telecom Regulatory Authority of India Act 1997. So its nature is statutory, it is created by a law, and it is a regulatory body to regulate the telecom agents. Then the functions are to regulate the telecom sector. Second, to enable licensing of telecommunication technologies like data services, carrier services, across services, and unified licensing. And lastly, it protects the interest of consumers in the telecom sector. Next, biobitumen. And India has become the first country in the world to commercially produce biobitumen in road construction. And if you look at the biobitumen, what exactly it is an alternative form of bitumen manufactured from organic elements, example, your agricultural waste, lignin, biochar, bio-oil, etc. So what is bitumen? Bitumen is a black substance produced through distillation of crude oil known for its adhesive qualities. The benefits is that if we use this for construction of road or any other product, it reduces the need for crude oil imports, it addresses the issue of stubble burning, and it increases or boosts the bioeconomy. It can also be used as an addition to the bitumen or to reduce the quantity of bitumen in the binder mixture. Along with this, their application is for waterproofing, for paving roads. Next important development is ICGS Samudra Pratap. So Indian Coast Guard ship Samudra Pratap, which is India's first indigenously designed pollution control vessel. So very important development. So India has done a lot for controlling pollution and for environmental sustainability, and this is another milestone in India's attempt in all these areas. That is ICGS Samudra Pratap, which is a pollution control vessel. It was commissioned recently in Goa, and it is first of the two PCVs being built by Goa Shipyard Limited, that is GSL, and it is the largest ship in the ICG fleet. And it is not just to be worked as a pollution control vessel, but it is also equipped with several other measures, and along with that it is equipped with advanced pollution detection systems, dedicated pollution response boats, pollution control laboratories, and modern fighting capabilities, right? Plus at the same time it will also be helping in other Coast Guard activities. Then Bannerghatta National Park was in news. Why? Because the Central Empowered Committee, which was constructed by, or which was constituted on the advice of Supreme Court, has recommended the withdrawal of 2020 government notification. So in 2020, government has signed or had provided a notification that diluted the ESZ of the region, right? And restoration of the wider ESZ as provided in 2016 draft notification. So earlier, the question was that in 2016 or in 2020, the government has diluted the norms of the eco-sensitive zone. So what is eco-sensitive zone? They are the areas essentially to create some sort of shock absorber. Basically, they are the buffer zones to the protected areas by regulating and managing the activities around such areas. So in all the important eco zones, there are certain areas within which the management of commercial activities are somewhat regulated, right? So this eco-sensitive zone, which was there in Bannerghatta National Park, was reduced by the government in a notification in 2020. And to check this and to see and oversee this, government, the Supreme Court had constituted a committee, that was Central Empowered Committee, and this committee has now said that we should not reduce the ESZ, we should ensure that the previous ESZ should remain. So this is the news all about. So what is Bannerghatta National Park? It is located in Bengaluru, Karnataka. It's a national park. It has 4 ranges: Anekal, Bannerghatta, Harohalli and Kodihalli wildlife ranges. Flora, Medri bamboo, and fauna: panther, elephant, sloth bear, spotted deer, grey langur, bonnet macaque, wild boar, jackal, etc. are the fauna that are being found here. Then next news is about Directorate General of Mines Safety, GGMS. So it recently celebrated its 125th Foundation Day. So what exactly should we know about DGMS? That it was established in 1902 as Bureau of Mines Inspection, and later it was renamed in 1967 as DGMS. So what exactly it does? It is a regulatory authority or agency under which Ministry of Labor and Employment. It deals in matters related to occupational safety, health and welfare of the persons employed in mines. Then the headquarters of this is located in Dhanbad, that is there in Jharkhand, and is headed by the Director General of Mines Safety. If we look at the roles and functions, so it has threefold functions. First is inspection of mines. Second, investigation into accidents. Third is to grant statutory permissions, exceptions, and relaxations. Next news is about silver. And there was a research paper done by Global Trade Research Initiative, GTRI. It highlighted that India must enhance silver processing and diversify imports to reduce reliance on the finished silver. So India imported about 21.4% of the global silver in trade in 2024, making it the world's largest consumer of finished silver. If you look at China, so China is importing the crude silver only, and it is processing it substantially on its own. But India, on the other hand, is importing the finished silver, and that is what the body GTRI is suggesting, that India should also enhance its processing capabilities of silver so that India can reduce the reliance on the finished silver, right? So not on the raw material, but on the finished silver. And why it is important? Because the global silver supply chain is very, very controlled. It is not like gold, right? And here only countries which trust each other and countries which have positive relations with each other are only providing silver to each other, right? So what exactly is silver? It is a relatively soft and shiny metal application. It is used in electrical and thermal conductivity. It makes it indispensable for electronics, circuit boards, connectors, batteries, and automotive system. Apart from that, it also has antimicrobial, antibacterial properties that are used in wound dressings, medical device coatings, catheters, surgical instruments, water purification system, and pharmaceutical compounds. Silver occurs in ores such as argentite and chlorogentite, horn silver, right? So this is all about this silver, but again, understand the geopolitical implication of the supply of silver, right? So this is again becomes a very important matter in international trade, right? So this is all about the news today for 8th January. Make sure that you also attempt the question that will be flashing on your screen. Till then, take care and all the best.